All right, JoeyRitter.com, on Twitter at Joey Ritter. Terrific guest today. One of the reasons Philadelphia Flyers games are sold out each and every night. Lauren Hart, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Joey.
Great to have you on. Now, Flyers games typically start around 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing at 6:30 p.m.?
Well, at 6:30 p.m., I'm pacing around downstairs
Okay.
and drinking tea. I go in, I sit and hang out in the press room with a lot of the guys that were around. You know, when my dad was around, kind of I grew up with them. I was a kid, but now I'm sort of a grown up with them, so that's kind of fun. And I just drink tea and I just get warmed up and just get psyched up to sing each night.
Right. And we're talking what? Bob Kelly, guys like that?
Yep, all those guys, and a lot of writers, a lot of beat writers that have been around that you might not know by name or face. A lot of writers that have come from other cities that were great friends with my dad, from anywhere from Toronto to New York to Chicago. A lot of relationships were built over the years. So it's nice to kind of keep in touch with them when they come into town, because it keeps my dad's memory for me fresh. So I like that.
That's cool. So, when the Flyers are playing the Rangers or something, the New York beat writers that have covered them over the years, it's just like seeing old friends again, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it kind of is. Some of the guys that work for the Rangers worked for the Flyers before, and you want to keep. You don't want to be too friendly pregame.
Right.
You got to keep a little bit of distance. But there, like for instance, the GM of the Penguins is Ray Sherrow, who's Fred Sherrow's son. And we kind of grew up together. He's a terrific guy, and he always comes and asks for my mom and asks how I'm doing. There's just a long history there. So I do like to say hello, but I don't want to jinx myself before the game. So I kind of a little bit of space sometimes on some of the people.
Now, speaking of the Rangers, back in 2001, the game that was played, the preseason game, where the president was addressing the nation and, everybody stopped and watched after 9/11. Was that the first time you sang after 9/11?
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, it was, the anthem has changed so much over the years. Before 9/11, people were always respectful. I mean, I think people were always a little bit even more respectful to me because of my dad, and they wanted to just sort of, be true Flyers fans. But after 9/11, the reverence and the meaning of the anthem at the start of a sporting event, it just totally, totally changed. And I can see it from the way people, they watch me, how they are moved by the anthem. I mean, I see grown men crying every night. And it's a really amazing thing. It's an amazing thing from my perspective to be able to watch it. But that particular game after 9/11 was just, I mean, I can't even describe it. I can't even describe the unity. And the Rangers, who we normally want to kick their butts, there was just a unity among everybody, and it was just consensus that we were, all in this sort of thing together. And it was really a spectacular moment in a very tragic and sad situation.
All right. Do you remember what was going through your head as you walked out, onto the ice? Like, I got to sing this like I've never sang it before?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, I think, for musicians and for singers, the way that you connect people is with your talent. And sometimes that can be healing, and sometimes that can be unifying. And it's one of the great things about, being a musician and being an artist, is that you can connect with people that way. So on that night, I really wanted to just, do what I could. Everybody wanted to know at the time, what can I do to help? How can I, make this a little bit better at the moment? And, my way of doing that was be able to sing that song, as best and strong and as proudly as I can, and to sort of bring everyone in that building together on that night.
Sure. Mm-hmm. All right. And that was a bit of a serious topic, so let's do a 180 here.
Okay.
Now, on YouTube, there's lots of videos of anthem singers, woman slips on the ice or a guy forgets the words. Have you seen these videos? Do you find these videos funny, or does that hit a little too close to home?
It hits way too close to home. I mean, knock on wood, I've always really, fared pretty well. But, I see it's everybody's worst nightmare. Public speaking, just to get up in front of anybody is horrifying enough. But to get up in front of all those people at that moment when you have 20 or 25,000 or 100,000 people, all eyes on you, waiting for you to just
Sure.
do one little thing wrong. It's such an intense moment. So when I seen people slip up, I'm like, wow, that is just my worst nightmare for sure. And particularly there was one girl who came out on the ice, forgot the words, walked out, came out, tried again, forgot the words, walked out, came out again, valiantly trying for a third time, and the rug just went out and she fell. And I thought, oh,
Yeah.
Please no, please no. And it's funny, before the games, people always ask me, hey, did you ever think you'll forget the words? I'm thinking, why would you say that to me like 2 minutes before I'm about to sing this thing? But, luckily for me, it's been okay. I haven't had any major flubs or anything, but I'm hoping at this point, doing it as long as I have, if I ever make a mistake, that everyone will still love me, hopefully. They'll give me a break one time.
Yeah, I think you're safe there. Now, you tweeted the other day that you're recording a new CD.
Mm-hmm.
Now, first of all, I'm not familiar with what a CD is. Can you tell me what a CD is?
Yeah, right?
No.
So at least I didn't say I'm making a new record. Well, I
Right.
guess you can kind of say that, recording. But, I've been doing original music for years and years, and actually long before I even started singing for the Flyers and singing the anthem. That's always what I've done. I'm a songwriter, and I sing in bands and things on the outside. And so lately I have been recording and performing a little bit less, because I've been doing a little bit more work behind the scenes, writing for films and writing for television. But
that's cool.
And and this last year I've been writing for a TV show, and in between breaks, I thought, I'm going to write myself some songs. I'm feeling in a good mood. So I kind of did it in between working on another project. And I thought, this is what I do. I'm just going to keep on doing it. So I'm excited. It's a EP, actually.
Right. Well,
EP, do you know what that means?
Yeah, extended play. So
Yes.
we're talking 5 or 6 songs here? Or?
Yeah. So, and it's just, it's fun for me because I have a whole studio set up in my house or wherever I can go. It's portable. I take it wherever I go, whenever I'm hanging. So it's kind of a cool thing, and I have a great bunch of musicians that are actually live in the area but do projects all over the world. So when they're in town, I grab them and get them to come in and play and everything. So it's just been a fun process for me over the last 6 months or so.
Now, your last CD was Good Things, right, in 2007?
Right.
So that's 6 years for the music business. I mean, that is so many things have. I don't even know if iTunes was big. When you came out with the last album.
Eternity. So, in that time, I've adopted 4 kids. So.
Oh wow.
I adopted 4 children, so that put me on hold for a minute there. And so I'm a newish mom of 4 kids that are 10, 7, 4, and 1. And that was a big, huge, quick learning curve for me, because I thought I was going to be single forever, let alone a mom of 4 kids. So they're just amazing, and I thought maybe having that big of a family that I would want to do it less, but in fact I really kind of want to do it more, because they really love it. They love music, and it inspires me to do well and to do more, because now I'm their role model, I'm their example. So
well, I'm not going to complain about the 10-month-old I have upstairs with you have
please do, it's fun.
Now, what age were you when you started learning guitar? I mean, I know you've been into music your whole life, but what age were you when you were learning guitar, writing your own songs, and really being inspired?
I remember being in the attic of my parents' house as young as 2nd grade, building my own instruments with a tape recorder, and that's another ancient device. Just putting songs together, and I've just been doing it forever. For as long as I can remember. I always knew I wanted to sing. The writing came a little bit more after the fact, and I studied piano when I was younger, but guitar was much easier to lug around, so I changed my instrument to primarily guitar, because it's much lighter and much easier.
Who were you listening to, when you were starting your songwriting?
Oh my gosh. I listen to all sorts of music. I listen to jazz, I listen to classical, I listen to, I love good pop music. I loved like U2 and, I love Bruce Springsteen. I like real pop Americana music and British rock bands. And that's always been my thing. And, just great voices. And it can be in any genre. It could be Nina Simone or Aretha Franklin or Whitney Houston or Janis Joplin. It could be just anybody that just has that voice that makes you stop in your tracks.
Are there any records in your record collection that people would be surprised about? Like, do you have a death metal album or something like that?
Well, right now I'm listening to my favorite CD that I listen to, and it's not a newer CD, but it's Kanon, and he's a Somalian rapper, and
Okay.
yeah, and it's just it's a really terrific album, and I'm just like into that right now. I get into an artist and their last work, and I listen over and over and over and over again. But he's really terrific, so that's what I'm into now. And for my kids, I'm listening to the Disney Channel.
Oh my God.
So yeah,
It's
I'm
so is
listening to
it
the same other songs over and over again.
so you've
So I
got
gotta
This
get
Is My Dance Floor, do you hear that one?
I got it all.
Oh my God. I can't take it. It's on the TV even when my daughter's not in the room, it's still on the TV. I just say to my wife, you got to get rid of this. I mean, this is why I do this show so I can come down to the basement and not hear the Disney Channel.
Right. Well, you know what? It's true. But the really great thing about it is for me is that my kids are a great gauge for music. So when I bring something home and they get it immediately, I know it's a good song.
Yeah.
And I kind of think on this last batch of music that I did that I really kind of oriented the music towards something that I know would make them happy, and it could be just, the beat of it or something really simple, but they're great judges. Although some of the stuff they're listening to, makes my head explode at times, but they're good critics. They know what's going on.
So there's been times where you've brought something to the table that you've written, and maybe they're saying, I don't think so, Mom, and you're like, oh, I worked so hard on that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. My kids asked me before. They're like, "Mom, will you be sad on this record again?" I'm like, "I'm like, no, I won't be. I promise. I promise." But they're really, even really young, they're really in touch. They're, I'm driving in the car with my 4-year-old, and she picked out that Gautier record. From the last year
Sure.
that no one was listening to, that was sort of a little bit different, sounded odd, and she right away was like, oh, this is a good one. So she and I listened to the Kanon stuff going to school every day, and she's way into that too, so it's good, it's fun.
Yeah. This is a bit of a silly question, but seriously, I've been wondering this since I was about 19 years old. And I believe you played at the Point in Bryn Mawr, a venue that I don't think is there anymore.
It's not.
But I remember being underage and not being able to get into the show. But I always wondered, is there like a guy that comes to the show with a Flyers jersey and has like a beer and is like, "Yo, Lauren, sing God Bless America," and doesn't quite get the atmosphere?
There's always that guy. There's
Wow.
always that guy. But you know what? 99 times out of 100, I love him anyway. I love him. Yeah, and even to this day, people will come up to me and say, "Oh, so what else do you do besides sing the anthem?" So a lot of people don't even know that I have this whole other life outside of my Flyers world, which I
Right.
love dearly, of course. But it's nice, and it's nice to turn people on to new stuff that have no idea what I do, really.
Right. Now, we talked about your dad. It's a little hard to interview and not bring up Gene Hart, legendary Hall of Fame broadcaster. Talk to me about what it's like, because I'm sure just a ton of people come up to you all the time, talk about the great memories they have of him. What are some of the things that you've heard over the years from people?
You know what? It's the greatest gift that people remember him and that they come up and tell me stories. And it really, truly, growing up there and growing up with that team and the legacy that, that era of the 70s and 80s put together was magical. What kid wouldn't love that, And we bonded. That was a big part of our family. We're going to games, or waiting up to hear dad on the TV at night, and staying up late. My mom letting us stay up late so we could listen to him. And even though he wasn't home, he was still kind of near
Yeah.
because we could hear his voice and we could see him on TV. And even now that he's gone, it's the same thing, because I'll walk by the TV set and I'll hear his voice and it's startling, but they'll be playing, a classic,
Sure.
Sportsnet game when we didn't have hockey for most of this year.
Hmm.
They were running a lot of, some of the best and greatest games, hockey games, and it's a gift that I can't even tell you. And the fans are so gracious and they're so wonderful about it that I just can't say thank you or tell them how much it means to me. Really.
Right. I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember when your father was calling games on the radio. And I was about fourth grade, and I remember, he would take calls after the game. So, he'd call the game, take calls, and I would just love listening to that. And it would be 10:30 at night. I should have been sleeping, and I would turn the radio up just enough where I could hear him, and my parents couldn't tell that I was listening to the radio. And so that's the first thing that I think of when I think of your father. And then the other memory I have is when the Flyers Carnival was at the Spectrum. He wrote the book Score,
Hmm.
which back then, we're talking, I guess, late 80s, early 90s. That was basically the internet, because, that was the reference of all, Flyers history and stats and that kind of thing. And I would just, read that book for hours and stuff. And my dad, who's not a starstruck guy, your father was the number one guy on his list. And I remember, he walked up to him and asked for his autograph, and he signed the book. And that was like the only time I've ever seen my dad starstruck, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
that's great. I remember my brother used to listen to the radio in his bed at night, and when I was real young, I wasn't into hockey that way. I wasn't into hockey the same way as my brother was, and so he would tell me that he snuck that radio in bed and was up way late, listening and hearing those callers, and I don't really have a really good memory of that part of it, but I can't tell you how many guys come up and tell me that the same story, that they listened on radio at night. And it really wasn't until much later that I really discovered him on the radio, that I realized why he was so good. And I used to commute back and forth to New York when I first started, playing in bands and playing in shows up there. So I'd be driving, I'd hear the game on the way up, or sometimes, if they were late on the West Coast, I'd hear him driving home. And I almost drove off the road a couple of times because he was just that, energetic and that exciting. So I wish that I had been listening at a much younger age, but it's a great memory for a lot of people, and I'm glad that I did have the years and the time to hear him in that way. And I used to watch him. You're talking about your father. When I would go to the Spectrum as a little kid, and I would follow him in those doors and walk down that steps, it was like the seas parted when he came, and everyone was like, Gene Hart, Gene Hart. And he was just so loved. And it really comes down to a couple of things. He really genuinely, as famous as he was, he loved people. He loved to hang out. He loved to talk. He loved hockey. He loved it. It wasn't a job. He wasn't a sportscaster that could interchange. He could probably do anything, and he did do other sports. But hockey was his thing, and he was just like, a regular guy doing an incredible thing. And I think that's why people really, really, related to him in the way that they do. But as his kid, you only see that thing in moments, because he's just your dad,
right.
But there are I saw people reacting to him that just knocked my socks off. How people responded to him.
And it's just gonna keep being that way, which is awesome. So,
Yeah.
now when I was googling around your name, was the Kate Smith duet, was that you're doing in terms of a tribute to your father?
Actually, that was created by the previous president of the Flyers, a guy by the name of Ron Ryan, who worked there for many years. He was there when my dad was there, and he was always a great, great champion of mine. And he sort of, when in the beginning when I started singing regularly, almost 99, like late 90s, 2000, that's when I kind of started singing more regularly. He really wanted to sort of, put me out there. And he was really, really great about that. And he was also a great music lover. So he always loved, he loved, Ray Charles and all different kinds of music. And he was telling me about, I think we were traveling like an away game or something, because sometimes I would go to away games. And he was saying, wouldn't it be great if you had a duet with Kate Smith, kind of like how Natalie Cole has that duet with her dad, Nat King Cole, and we could split the screen. And I thought, yeah, that would be cool, And truthfully, I never saw Kate Smith sing. I know of her, and I know of the legacy about her, and I've certainly heard the recordings of her. But he really came up with the idea, and it was before a game one night, and he came up and he called me during that day, and he said, he's like, well, we have the video. He's like, why don't you come in before the game and rehearse? And I thought, okay. And in my mind, I kind of like, he had kind of said off the top, he's like, yeah, you'll trade lines, you'll do some, she'll do some. But in my mind, I kind of had a feeling of like, well, how would that work out? And sure enough, when I got there and they ran that video, it was just like I thought it was going to be. And I think we did it maybe 2 times, and that was it. And we're like, all right, good to go. And we just did it that night, and the fans freaked, and it is really different. It's, I've been to all the other buildings in the other cities, and I've never seen anything like it. So it's really sort of, it's unique to our city. And a lot of people ask me, is it in the past, and how do you feel about it? But if it's entertainment and it makes people happy, and if all it took was me to sing the anthem in a special way, with a whirly bird on my head, and you win, I'd do it, But really, it's just, my part of the game and the stuff around the game that's not the actual hockey, which is also entertainment, but it's really just for the fans. It's to make people happy, and it's to have a good time. And there's a lot of Flyers fans that really still remember that time and really love it. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of young kids who have no idea who I'm singing with,
right.
and ask me if that's my grandmother, or is that my is that Susan Boyle? I don't know if you know who that is. Somebody says, Susan Boyle, are you singing? The American Idol lady that won.
America's Got Talent.
Yeah, the British one of those. So, yeah, I mean, everybody has their opinion of it. But I will tell you that every time we do it out there on the ice, it feels like the the roof is going to blow off. So,
absolutely. Especially now that it used to be, I think when you first started it, weren't you just kind of doing it for important games like Game 7s and that type of thing? And now it seems like it's every playoff game.
Yeah.
And I think like the anticipation of when Kate Smith's coming in and then you come back, that adds to it too, because people are anticipating it and waiting to cheer for it. But my question about it is, you come out and you're in a giant building with 17,000 people, you got echoes and reverberations happening, and you're kind of singing with a recording. Is that, difficult to do? Is it harder than it looks?
It's I have ear monitors. I wear a belt pack and I have ear monitors, so I don't hear any echo. I hear things really like directly. I've worked with the same sound guy there, Lou Diva, for years, who's absolutely awesome. And the only time it gets hard to hear, honestly, is when we do Kate Smith, that duet, because it just gets so loud. But by the end of the song, even if I have the volume cranked all the way up, I'm like, geez, I hope I'm hitting the right note, because I can't hear anything. But it's, at that point, it's just so much fun, and you're not, you're totally not worried about, too much at that point, because it's just so much energy, and it's just an amazing experience.
Right. All right. Now, the last thing we do here on JoeyRitter.com is a little game we call Turn It Up or Turn It Off. And I'm going to name you 5 songs that you know, and you just simply tell me if you turn it up or turn it off.
Okay.
All right? Your first song is ABBA, Dancing Queen.
Ooh, turn it off.
Not an ABBA fan. Second song is Meatloaf, Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
Oh, God, turn it off. I'm sorry.
I need to mention that the reason I put those 2 songs first is I was in Rite Aid buying a birthday card, and I had an ABBA and Meatloaf CD. It's always hard to think of these songs, and that's why I put those in. All right.
Okay.
Third song is Oasis, Wonderwall.
All right, I'll turn that up. I like Oasis.
All right, back on the upswing.
Mm-hmm.
Here I Go Again by Whitesnake.
Ooh, turn it up.
Into that
I'm
one.
down with Whitesnake for sure. Yeah.
And the last one is Real Slim Shady by Eminem.
Turn it up.
Turn it up. All right. Hey, Lauren, there's so much to talk about, but, you know, I know you got to go. Follow Lauren Hart Music on Twitter. I love what you're doing on Twitter. You're very engaging, you know, answering fans' questions and stuff like that. And that's Lauren Hart Music, Hart. Lauren, thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, thanks, Joey. It's been awesome.
You got it. Keep killing it.
Go Flyers.